Let's bring in Kentucky GOP Senator Rand Paul. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We all were saying we would take a bet that they are not going to be, this affidavit's not going to be unsealed, because this is the judge or the same person that signed the AOK to go into Mar-a-Lago. What do you think?
Well, I think the burden is on the FBI to justify this raid. This is extraordinary. This is also the same FBI that used a foreign intelligence warrant to snoop on and spy on the Trump campaign, to investigate them for over 2 years. So I think the burden really is on the FBI. They've been wrong in the past. They've broken the law in using these foreign intelligence warrants. Now they use a domestic warrant, but I do think they need to release the justification for this, because this is extraordinary, and we should not lose sight of the fact this has never, ever happened before, for good reason, because we need to have confidence in the FBI. We need to have confidence in our intelligence agencies that they're there to protect us and not to go after people for political purposes. So the burden is on them to prove that this is not a politically motivated witch hunt.
Sure. And, we've heard of bad actors, Senator, at the FBI years ago regarding Russia and Trump and stuff like that. But those people were fired years ago. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, Mike Pence, who was up in New Hampshire, he called on the attacks on the FBI to stop. He was reminding the New Hampshire Republican Party there that the Republican Party is the party of law and order, and Republicans stand with the men and women who serve at the federal and state level. And he said the attacks on the FBI must stop.
But part of a democratic republic like we have is allowing dissent and having discussion over government behavior. So, for example, Christopher Wray came to my committee, and I asked him, is it appropriate? Does it meet the constitutional standard to use a foreign intelligence warrant on a domestic politician such as Trump, on an American? And I indicated to him that I think it's a lower standard, because a FISA warrant only requires that you say probable cause to have a connection to a foreign country or a foreign government, whereas the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution says probable cause of a crime. Right. So I think that a FISA warrant has a lower standard. And Christopher Wray's response to me, this is the current head of the FBI, was, it's no big deal. He thinks it's fine to use FISA or foreign intelligence warrants on Americans. And a lot of people think that's true. I don't. But this is part of the abuse. But this is part of the same people who are still running the FBI. They have a different understanding, maybe, of what they think the FBI can and cannot be done and how it should be used on Americans. But I'm going to require proof that there was actually some sort of probable cause of a crime, and I'm suspicious that there was not.
Well, and Senator, absolutely, Congress has oversight over the FBI and the Department of Justice and everything else. The problem is, over the last week or so, there's been so much violent rhetoric directed at the FBI, and I heard somebody printed FBI stands for Fascist Bureau of Investigation or something like that. And unfortunately now, the people who work at the FBI headquarters, there are death threats and all sorts of stuff. I heard from a staff member there who was talking to a colleague at the FBI, and the colleague realized, oh, look, I'm wearing the wrong shoes today to work, because if somebody comes and attacks the building and I've got to run, I can't run in these heels. So unfortunately, people at the FBI are caught in the crosshair.
Yeah, I think the death threats are obviously inappropriate and not the way to go around it. As far as investigating the FBI through the congressional process, through the political process, the problem is that the people in charge of Congress, the Democrats, have not been interested in or curious in investigating anything. We had 1 million people die from COVID, and we haven't had one hearing on the origin. We finally did about a couple of weeks ago. I insisted on a hearing, and then the Democrats didn't come to my hearing. So the thing is, there's been a lack of curiosity on the part of investigation, but there's no excuse for threats to the FBI. And the thing is look, they're not the only ones getting threats. I've had probably over 50 threats this year. I sometimes can have a dozen in a week. We have my address posted online. We have people that are wishing me ill will and wishing me, injury all the time. So all of the threats are wrong, from the right or the left.
Meantime, Senator, big shakeup at the CDC, or at least that's what they say is going to happen. Here's CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, quote, "For 75 years, CDC and public health have been preparing for COVID-19, and in our big moment, our performance did not reliably meet expectations. My goal is a new public health action-oriented culture at the CDC that emphasizes accountability, collaboration, communication, and timeliness." Sounds great. Are you confident it will happen, Senator?
Well, they say part of the road to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. So I guess they have now admitted they have a problem. But like so many things at the CDC, the left has misdiagnosed the problem and they're going to misapply the solution. It wasn't that they acted too sparingly. The problem was that they acted too quickly and not based on science. It wasn't that they were, waiting around for science. They were reacting every week with a new edict that contradicted the previous week's edict. They also commissioned studies that completely dismissed the idea that you got immunity from COVID after having had it. So how can you do a study of whether a vaccine or a booster works if an arm of the study is not people who have actually already had the disease? If you discount having the disease, most of the studies are worthless. So what I would suggest, if they want to reorganize, is humility. I think they need to step back and get back into the advice game, not the mandate game. So with masks, they should have said the evidence is inconclusive. For the most part, cloth masks don't work. If you're at high risk or in a situation where you're having to take care of a family member, you might want to wear a mask. But there's no scientific evidence of any randomized controlled study that masks actually reduce the incidence in the public sphere of the transmission of the disease, and then you make your own decision. Instead, they became so obsessed and thought they knew the truth. They were so adamant that they knew the truth that they were going to tell everybody what to do and what to wear. And that was their mistake, was a lack of humility. So if the reorganization says we're going to be humble, try to look through the science, and when it's equivocal, give advice, not mandates, that's what I would suggest to them.
Senator, let's go down to the southern border, because Fox News, we have a reporter down there who witnessed, Bill Melugin, who witnessed the National Guard, Texas National Guard, under the direction of Abbott, to lock the gate at the border on this private property at this major crossing area in Eagle Pass to deny the illegals entry. But you can see here what happened next. We witnessed the Border Patrol agents come along with a key. They open up the gate so that these illegals that were standing outside of the gate, they would let them through and then head to processing, all with the Texas National Guard standing there watching this happen. We're also learning that Republicans are questioning whether or not the Biden administration has contacted Amtrak. Will they use federal funds to transport some of these illegals throughout our country using Amtrak trains? What do you know?
Well, I think it's ironic that we won't let the world's greatest tennis player in because he's not vaccinated, right, Djokovic, and yet we'll let thousands and thousands of migrants come in unvaccinated. Talk about hypocrisy. Maybe you should talk to the CDC about that. But I think we should change the law. I think, frankly, that anybody who is caught in the act of coming in should be immediately placed back on the other side. No process, nothing. If you were caught breaking in, not through a normal portal of entry, you should go back on the other side of the river immediately. But we'd have to change the law. The Democrats love illegal immigration, and so they have not been willing to. But there is a compromise to be had. What I would say, everyone should be deposited on the other side of the river, but as a compromise, we should increase lawful immigration, and we should put more resources to allow more people to come and apply in a normal fashion at the port of entry. But I would have zero tolerance. And once you did that for about 6 months, right, and while I was not opposed to the wall, I think you could do it with helicopters and with maybe 50 stations along the border, and you could have it done in a month. Zero tolerance. Everybody goes back. Sure. But right now, the law is if you set foot over here, you are allowed to have some sort of process that lasts years and never really comes to fruition, and you're sent to another part of the country, and then you're here to stay.
Senator, since you just
terrible process now.
It's quite a process. Since you just mentioned zero, and I see that you're back home in Kentucky, are the people of Kentucky delighted that, according to the administration, inflation is at zero? Because that's what they've been saying, because there was no month-over-month increase. We're just stuck right now at 8.5%. People in Kentucky don't know it's not zero.
I think when they hear that from Biden's lips, they wonder, because they're still going to the gas pump and still paying, $4 a gallon or more. They're still going to the grocery store and paying 30, 40% more for eggs, for meat, etc. So, no, people are still suffering. And what you're seeing is something dramatic. The reason the gas prices come down is people quit driving. So the people that are good, hardworking people in Kentucky that are having trouble and struggling, they've quit driving, and they've quit going on vacation, and everybody's cutting back, and so that's brought the price down. But the cause of inflation is debt, and the Federal Reserve buying the debt. There's still an extraordinary amount of this money that has not been spent yet. City governments have it, county governments have it, and state governments have it. I would estimate about half of the money that they printed up that the Federal Reserve loaned to the government, half of that money is still sitting in the coffers of government and hasn't been spent. When it is spent, there's going to be more inflation, not less.
Great.
Senator Rand Paul, thank you very much. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you.